Welcome back to chapter 10 of the Software Test Strategies book. This time we're going to talk about putting things together to a coherent strategy and what a coherent strategy would look like. It's a pretty short chapter. You remember previously we talked about risk, coverage, bugs, and recipes. So we kind of indirectly use some of those things with the test case structure. For example, if you say, did we cover this? You could say, well, we have a test case named the thing we're testing. So yeah, we look. I don't know. I don't know why that bug emerged when we or you could say, for this feature we have 10 test cases. So that's pretty good compared to some other features. That's a really sloppy measurement. It's better than nothing probably to have some outline of your features and have, but test cases don't have really, they're not a good measure because how big is a test case? Is it 5 minutes of work? Is it half an hour of work? Does that cover the whole feature? Does that cover the whole use case? Does that cover the whole scenario, or is it just one little bit? I've seen people call test cases all of the different things you can search for just on search and just make sure that those results are right, or even just like do the simplest of searches and look all the way around it. And you can't tell just by using that term. So we're kind of rough on that term because it combines several of these constructs together. I don't want to spend a lot of time on what we're rough on. In the in the book, we introduce or reintroduce the lean test canvas, which is a way of looking at how things are actually going right now. Once you've looked at how things are actually, how long does it take us to decide if a given change should go into production or not and put it in production from the time the change is put in version control to live? How long is that window? And we find a lot of the organizations that are pursuing continuous delivery, where they want the computer to do all of the checking and put the thing out, because of code review and because of change control and because of other intermediate steps, maybe database changes, that it's a continuous delivery shop. Everything is done through, or they're pursuing everything being done through automated pipelines, or maybe it is continuous deployment. But we still need to have a human being do the merge and the code review or whatever. And those steps actually take longer, and with massive tooling and automation, massive amounts of automating of running human tests. But that's where our delay is. The delay isn't in testing at all. So after that, we talk about the value of testing and how to articulate it. And because testing's kind of a strange thing. If everything goes right, we don't have any problems. So it's invisible. So if that's true, it's kind of like insurance where you pay for it and you hope you don't ever need it. Um, if we don't do a good job of articulating the value, we'll simply replace it for some cheaper, lighter, easier version of testing and keep replacing it until something breaks. And that may be something big and it may be hard to recover from. So we want to explain to the organization the value. And we talk about a potential census of risk, which is just a list of emergent things which somebody should check. Now, whether those should be institutionalized and become run into tooling, whether they should be institutionalized and have a human check them periodically, we really want to avoid that second category. But what if we just made a list of, and there's a lot of things you just want to check one time. We might not have time to check it right now. Make a list, put a priority on it, sort it. As we check things, as we test things, take them off the top of the list, put them somewhere else. The list keeps bubbling up. Or you could use a filter and only show the things that have not been tested. Um, one organization that I worked with actually sort of recycled them down to the bottom and lowered their priority, and eventually they'd pop up if it was high enough yet. That's just a human decision made by a human. It's relatively sloppy, but the alternative in most organizations is the people check for things that they think of when they have time. and we never have time, so they never get checked. This allows us to reflect a list to management. These are the things we're thinking about. We're putting this much time into it, which is going to predict that we get about this far down every week, whatever. Is that enough? It's up to you. Now, if we can tie that back to the bugs that emerge and what's found and where it's found, then we get some really compelling data. Like we can put more time into emergent risk because that's where we're finding all the bugs. And there's a lot more that are being found in production. Or we're doing about right. We're not. And that's really the strategy piece is how are we doing? What do we want to improve? What are we going to change to improve it? We call that working on the airplane while it's in flight, which is really the difficult part. Coming up with the conceptual, theoretical, look at all these graphs, it's really cool. You should do testing like this. That's the easy part. Problem is, here's what we're doing now. Here's tomorrow's deadline. What are we going to change by then? What can I do on my lunch hour? And so another thing we put in this chapter was the mind map for a real product that we tested. We tested it was immature software startup. So we said, we'll tell you what, we'll put an hour into it for a modest fee. And then we'll find you some bugs and we'll give you a visualization of your feature set for testing. You can do whatever you want with that. You can scale testing around it. You can decide what where you're going to put in tooling, where you're going to put in humans, what you're going to do. When it comes time to do a release, you can look at that and you can say, we're going to put less effort over here and more effort over there. We're going to time box it to a day and we're going to get it out the door. And once the user interface becomes stable, we can start putting tooling around it. So that would be an example of starting with nothing and building the airplane in flight, which is what we talk about in the chapter. I'm at 7 minutes already. So thank you for listening, and we'll have more to come soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.